Welcome to Nomadic HQ, the home of great craftsmanship. Drawing inspiration from our city's shipbuilding legacy, Nomadic Watches hosts a modern array of watches inspired by over 100 years of history, helping to showcase and put our city on the map within the world of timepieces, one watch at a time. You're watching the official Young Hunger podcast. My name is Michael Burgess, and it is our privilege to introduce the visionary behind it all, introducing Mr. Peter McAuley.
Welcome to Nomadic Watches HQ in Belfast. I'm Peter McAuley, and I'm super excited to be talking to Michael and Ross from Young Hunger today.
Where are we shooting today? This is Nomadic HQ?
Yes, this is Nomadic HQ, so we're in the Scottish Provident building. It's right beside City Hall, and this is one of the oldest buildings in the city. It was built in 1902, so it predates the City Hall, predates like the building of the Titanic and all that sort of stuff, and it's just got this amazing history, and it's been wonderfully kind of restored, and all the kind of original tiles are still in the building, and it's just got this great character about it.
Because this is the first time we've ever been in the building.
Yeah.
And this is like, I actually said the Ross coming in, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I was like, this is probably one of the coolest buildings in Belfast.
It definitely is, and it's kind of like a bit of a hidden gem. I think not many people know about it, and I think everybody maybe knows the building or recognises it, and you'll see it, but you would never maybe have the opportunity to come inside, because it's all kind of little offices with lots of small and large businesses kind of spread out throughout it, but unless you're interacting with one of those, you maybe wouldn't have the chance to come in and see the building. And it whenever I first went inside, I was kind of blown away, like, wow, this place is great. It's got so much character and so much history. And
you tie that in nicely with the watches and stuff too, isn't it?
Exactly. I was trying to find that a building that reflected us as a brand, with the kind of luxury feel and the history that, you know, we kind of align ourselves with as a brand. It was great to be able to find a building that aligned with that so perfectly and is an inspiring environment to be in. I think your environment is quite important part of your work. If you're going to spend so much time in this place, it wants to be somewhere that you're happy to go into and you want to be in. So it just felt right to get this space. Looking
at you, and I haven't known you for like, probably known off you for like 2 years maybe, or maybe a year and a half or so. What we really like doing is asking questions that personally we would like to know. For like young entrepreneurs and self-development and stuff. So I'm sure other people are thinking the same, but I've seen you become an entrepreneur and stuff. So what sort of inspired you to be that as such, and sort of what made you create your own watch company that is Nomadic?
Great. I think what inspired me to be an entrepreneur was something I always kind of wanted to do, and I always knew I wanted to do it. So my parents owned like a few businesses growing up. They had like a newsagent shop, and they had a pub, and they had a few various other bits. So I was always kind of around that stuff. And then my younger brother has his own business. He's a successful gym owner and a clothing line called Exto. So he's doing really well for himself. And I was always kind of looking at him as I was doing great in my own career in the engineering field, and I was loving that, but I seen the freedom that he kind of had from running his own business and the fulfillment he got from doing that, and I thought, I would love to be able to have my own business as well, and someday I'll have this amazing idea and it'll just click and I'll be able to start doing that. And after a few years had kind of gone by and that genius idea had never really came, I thought, well, it's not going to just come. I'm going to have to actually work hard to make this happen. And
what did you do beforehand? Sorry, you were saying before.
So I worked in mechanical engineering. So that was what I did my degree in, and then stayed in England. So went to England for uni, stayed there with a local business doing mechanical engineering in like sheet metal work, and it was something. It's maybe not like a sexy industry, but it was something I got really into and really passionate about just through doing it, because it was solving problems, and it was like working on cool, complex issues that I found were difficult to solve. And then once you solve it, it was really satisfying that you found a solution to this problem. So I loved that, really enjoyed that career. And then I kind of realized maybe I wanted to be involved more in business than engineering. So I then went back to uni just sort of part-time and did an MBA, and that sort of opened my eyes up to the world of business and how to maybe do that at a better and higher level. And then from there, came back to Northern Ireland to join a company called Black Box that have done amazing things in the fitness industry, and that was such like an exciting business to be a part of, because they were really high growth, and just to kind of be involved in that sort of super fast pace with like quite a young team as well was like a really exciting environment to be around. And I think I always still just had something, like even though that I loved that job, it was like my dream job, I wanted to have my own thing. And so I started Nomadic on the side and didn't really like tell anybody about it. It was kind of like, it was maybe like a year after I'd actually started it before I even told people, oh yeah, that's me, by the way. Kind of behind that, because I was a bit like scared of telling people in case it like failed or didn't go right, and I didn't want people to know that I'd kind of done it wrong. So kind of kept that a secret for a while, and then eventually had the confidence and was able to go full time at it. And then that's when things really started to like take off for us and started to grow. Once you're able to give something your full focus and attention, it was like amazing how quickly we were able to kind of grow the brand.
Would you call this your dream job?
Yeah, definitely. I would say this is a dream job. Yeah, you know, watches are something I'm passionate about, I'm interested in. You get to deal with great people, and whenever you speak to clients, like, people always have a story about their watch. You know, it's not just a watch, it's something that you wear on your wrist every day. You want to have a connection to it. And when you speak to people about their watches, it's amazing to hear the kind of stories they have. And it's all, you know, it's maybe I got this watch from my dad, or I had this watch whenever I got married and we took it to this place and we did this thing. And you've always got these kind of memories all built up in your watch, and you know, you'll have your little scratches in it and stuff. I got that scratch that time whenever I did that, I was surfing in this place or whatever, and you always have these little memories attached to it, and I think that's really cool. And whenever you speak to people about their watches and you get to hear all those stories, it's always amazing to find out. So
that's the OG. That's the OG.
That's the first one. That's the first ever watch. Yeah. So this was like the first production sample, like number 000, I suppose. And I kind of wear this most days, and it's still going strong. So I field test them, and I wanted to create a watch that you could like wear for everyday situations and not feel too precious about. Like, I would go sea swimming and stuff like most days, and I wear this every day, take it with me. You know, I use it to time the swim and use the little bezel to align up and with the minute hand, and then you know exactly how long you've been in the water, which in summer is maybe not so important, but in winter when it's really cold, you need to kind of be aware of, oh yeah, I've been in 10 minutes, that's long enough, get out now, you know, sort of thing, before you get too cold.
What I love about your watches is, like, even though I can just see the wee hand there, it's yellow.
Yep.
Showing the Belfast, really, isn't it?
That's it, yeah. So I spent a lot of time in the Titanic Hotel, which was obviously the former drawing offices for Harland and Wolff. So I spent a lot of time in there, soaking up the atmosphere when I was designing this watch, and I kind of was coming up with all these different crazy ideas and stuff, and I kind of realized that less is more, and I just wanted to pare it all back but build in these subtle cues and hints to Belfast, so we have that sort of connection here. Yeah. So yeah, all of our watches have this yellow seconds hand, and that's our little nod to the cranes, and it's kind of, if you know, you know, and it's a cool little link to home.
Thanks, class, yeah.
But if you're not from here, you don't recognize it. It's just a cool feature and it looks nice. But once you dig into the history behind it, you're like, oh, that's why, and that's cool. And
the name too, Nomadic, is after
the ship. Even the name Nomadic, yeah, it's a great name that stands on its own as just this adventurous brand, and that's what I'm all about and what I represent and what the brand is for. But it's got that. It's actually inspired by the SS Nomadic, which was the tender ship for Titanic. So all of our things always have this kind of link back to history, and I think that's so important. And the name of our first watch is the Mirai 401, which Mirai means seafarer in Irish, and then 401 is like a little reference to Titanic's production number, which was the 401st ship. So there's all these things like wee hints and wee Easter eggs, and you can kind of dig into it and you realize that it's like, oh wow, yeah. And I think that's what makes it a little bit more interesting, more unique. And when somebody asks you about your watch, it's not just, oh yeah, I just got it from a jeweler shop. It's like, oh well, this is why I got this watch, is because it's from Belfast, it has this connection, this is the story behind it. And I think whenever your watch tells a story, not just the time, that's when it becomes like a really interesting piece.
Even off camera, I asked you a question, I thought it was pretty cool. I was like, do you create, I know you have a watch coming out soon.
Yep.
Hopefully whenever this goes live, but I was going to say to you, do you create the watch first and then add it to the time, or do you have a look at the time frame or whatever's happening, and then add the watch to it, or what way?
Yeah, we have a new watch coming soon, but yeah, I always try and look for things that inspire me first, and then figure out how I can build a watch to represent that story or that event. So the new watch is called the Touras 914, and it's based on the 1914, that's the 914 reference, 1914 Trans-Antarctic expedition, which was guys like Ernest Shackleton and Tom Crean and all these like amazing heroes kind of from here that went to try and cross Antarctica. It was kind of deemed as like a failure of a mission at the time because they didn't manage to get across the continent. They got trapped in the ice and their boat sank, and they were stuck there for almost 2 years, and they eventually made it back through these daring lifeboat escapes and open water journeys of like 800 miles across uncharted sea, and it's now kind of looked back on as like the greatest survival story ever because all 28 men made it through it alive. And it's just, when you read the journals from Shackleton and the stuff those guys went through was unbelievable, and not with like modern equipment and gear and coats and stuff. It's like with really rugged old equipment and literally trying to navigate. They had like a watch and a sextant, and that was all they had left. All their compasses had been destroyed and that sort of thing. So they really had this incredible survival story to actually make it back alive. So I wanted to capture that and build our next watch around that, and that was the inspiration for the Touras, and which means expedition in Irish. And I think once the guys made it back from that trip, it was the middle of World War I, so kind of nobody cared at the time. It was like, well, all the boys are out on the front. Where have you guys been off on a jolly around well, hang on a minute. So, and then a lot of the men then did go and enlist, and a few of them died on the fronts within months of coming back and surviving this incredible thing. So, but yeah, it's just an amazing story of leadership and survival. And even after going through all that, a few years later, Shackleton wanted to go back, and he put the call out to all the old boys again, and most of them said, yeah, let's go again. Yeah. Go again, boss. And it was just like, wow.
I love the fact there's so much more than just a watch.
Yeah.
It nearly tells a story in each.
Absolutely. It tells that story, and that's kind of, I think, when you're wearing something on your wrist, that having a story or a connection with it just makes it so much more meaningful. And I think that's kind of where we try to build the brand around is those stories and those connections.
I haven't told you this, but I actually live, I thought this would be kind of nice to tell you, but I actually live neighbouring the house of Thomas Andrews, who right. We're actually, so I can actually see his house.
Wow.
Yeah. So I sort of felt, whenever you were saying about the watch in the hand and stuff, I was like, I can nearly have that wee connection with it.
That's amazing.
So I was like, wow, like, it's class.
Yeah, I used to go in, like sit in Thomas Andrews' office when I was doing a lot of the designs for it, and he actually went to my old school as well.
Oh, did he?
So yeah,
where did you go?
I went to Inst, so had that connection with Andrews as
well.
It
all relates back.
It all relates back, yeah, it's amazing.
What about you were saying you sort of left your job to pursue this dream of yours. What sort of made you go all in to doing it? What made you take the jump?
Yeah, I think part of it was maybe a bit of a push and a bit of a jump. I think I was like, I'm not going to be able to stay here much longer. And we just had our second child. She was like 4 weeks old at the time. So when I came home to Jane, I was like, yeah, look, I want to go full time at this. Let's give it a go. It kind of came to the point where we were making a bit of sales and we're having a bit of success, and I knew we had something special because people were buying the watch in like across the world, in America and in Australia and Saudi Arabia. Yeah, we're in like 34 countries around the world, which is mind-blowing. Yeah. But at the time I knew people loved the watch, and they were leaving us 5-star reviews, and we'd sent the watches to like experts on YouTube and experts from watch magazines, and they were like, when you first approach these guys and speak to them, say, we've got this watch, and they're like, all right, what's this thing going to be like? They'll humor you. We'll take a look at it for you. And once they took a look, and they were like, oh my, this is amazing. How have you created this piece at this price point and get this level of quality? And they were blown away by it. Yeah. So I knew I had something special, and I thought if I went full time at this, I could really make a go of it and make something of it. And I said to my wife, we had a conversation, and was like, yeah, look, give me 3 months at this, and if I can't make it work, I'll go back to the 9 to 5. I'll get a proper job again. But
how did that feel? I'm sure you have so much more responsibility. Yeah. You've got a wife, kids.
Definitely, yeah. It's scary. Yeah, it takes a lot. I think yeah, when you've got a family to support, and it adds that extra element of risk, but there's also fuel to the fire. It's like, well, I have to make this succeed, and this is why, and that's what kind of drives me on. And I think when you've got a mission driving you forwards, that's not just, you know, yourself, it's to provide for your family. And my mission for Nomadic now is to like put Belfast on the watchmaking map, and we want to, you know, fly the flag for the incredible engineering that goes on here. Yeah. We want to put that on the global stage and compete with the kind of Swiss brands and a lot of the British brands. So we're really flying the flag for Northern Ireland, and that's my mission, is to put Belfast on the map. And when you're driven by something that's a little bit bigger than you, it gives you so much more inspiration and passion and fuel to make it succeed, even through like difficult times and challenging times. And I think sometimes, yeah, the initial point where, yeah, should we go all in at this? It's really scary, but it's not that scary really, because what if it all fails? Well, yeah, you'll maybe lose a bit of time, you'll lose a bit of money, but you can always just go back to get the 9 to 5 again. You know, you're probably, you know, in the very worst case scenario, you know, are you going to lose the house and everything? Well, how likely is that really to happen? And even if it did, would it be permanent? Well, probably not. You could find a way to survive these things, and you've got a support network around you and family and stuff. So I think if you look at what is the very worst case scenario, if it all went wrong, it's probably not that bad. And then what's the likelihood of that happening to that level? It's probably not that likely. And even if it did, is it going to be permanent? Well, probably not. So once you look at it like that, it's not that scary, and then it gives you the confidence to make the jump and go all in at it. And then when you kind of know that you can't fail, or even if you did, it wouldn't be that bad, then that fear is eliminated, and you can just kind of go for it.
I think you're a great example of doing something, taking that jump and it working, because me and Ross talk to so many people and stuff, and even friends, and they're nearly where you were. They have this great idea and they really want to go for it, but there's just something holding them back.
Yeah.
To doing that as such, and you've went and you've done it, and you've shown that you can. But there's a question there I really wanted to show you, or ask you, sorry, was, is there any initial steps you took to turning the idea of like Nomadic Watches into a reality for someone who was maybe where you were and needs that?
Yeah,
advice?
so I think that's a good point. So I think Warren Buffett said, don't test the depth of the river with 2 feet. So you have to test the market. And I think we were speaking about this a little bit off camera. You know, when I initially had the idea for Nomadic, I kind of thought, I planned it out that this was going to be a watch that guys like myself would buy, or younger guys that maybe couldn't afford the uber luxury watches of the world, and this would be like an entry level piece that people could connect with equal or very close to equal quality, but you still get that luxury experience, but not at that price. And I kind of thought it would be this watch for the younger guys that are not quite there yet in their careers. But actually, in reality, once we tested it in the field, in the market, it's not that's not usually the person who buys our watch. Usually it's more of the older guys who are a bit more established, and they maybe have a watch collection already, and they're really passionate about watches, and they find us as this new brand that has this connection, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to be a part of that. And those are the guys that actually buy the watches. So I developed all this kind of marketing strategy thinking I was marketing to myself, when really I was more marketing to like my dad and those sort of generation, and that once you test that and figure it out, that affects and impacts the decisions that you make and the directions that you go with the brand. So it's really important, I think, to figure out a way to scale it down to a small version of it that you can test and get feedback from, and that real world feedback is like invaluable to go ahead to actually go full on with the business. So I think you know, you can have the best plans and the best drawn out business plans and all of this, but it you know, no plan's going to survive the actual contact with reality. And I think it's important to test those and make sure it's you can set yourself. I wouldn't just say go all in this new idea. Like make sure it's going to work first. You know, test it in some way and get some feedback so that you know it's going to work. And I think if you're showing it to your friends and your family, and they're like, oh yeah, that's quite cool, that means it's probably not good enough. If you're showing it to someone, they're like, oh my god, take my money, how can I buy this right now? Then you know you've got something that's like amazing. You know, I think people will to try and spare your feelings, will be like, oh yeah, I love it, mate, that's great. And they're like, yeah, maybe not. But if they're like, oh wow, I love this, can I buy this right now? Like, oh, well, it's not ready yet. That, you know, that you've got something. Even if you have a prototype and people just love it so much that they want to buy it, you know, you've probably got a winner there.
Was even like hearing you speak and stuff, I can sort of tell that you knew that this was going to work. Yeah. But see, you're like maybe friends and family and outside influences. What was that like? Was that like, so don't do it, like hold off, or was it like?
That's a really good point. Yeah, I think, and that's one of my biggest pieces of advice would be ignore the naysayers. You know, you will get these people that tell you that's not a good idea. Don't do it. Don't go for that. Play it safe. And a lot of people, you know, your close family and friends, they have your best interest at heart. Like, they want to protect you and they want to see you do well, and they don't want to see you fail. So their natural tendency is to be like, no, play it safe, you know, wrap it in cotton wool. And I think you have to take that on board to a certain extent, but also recognize the place that it's coming from and put it to one side and do your own thing anyway and forge ahead. And everybody will tell you, don't do it, that's a bad idea, that's risky. But I think if you know yourself that it's a good idea and you've got this obsession with it, and if you've had it and you've sat on it for a few months and you've still got that obsession with it, then I would say it's probably time to go for it and do something with it.
Do you always have that sort of passion for watches since no age?
Yeah, so I was always really interested in watches, and I think my dad had a few really nice pieces and my uncle had some really nice pieces as well, and he left me some of those when he died, and I was maybe a bit too young to appreciate how nice they were and how good they were. And you know, like I said, watches are maybe designed to be used in these extreme environments. So I wore this lovely watch on a kayaking trip and in Loch Earn, and I was kayaking away, and then only after we came back I realised the watch wasn't on my wrist anymore and it had been lost in the loch somewhere. So yeah, there's a nice tag heuer in the loch. Somebody wants to go up with a metal detector and try and find it. But yeah, years and years later, that as I reflected on that, and at the time I was like, oh, that was a shame, but now I'm like, that really was a shame, because that was that connection with my uncle. And I think as you get a bit older, more mature, you reflect on these things, and that was maybe what gave me the fuel or the spark for Nomadic, that I could create a watch that would be robust enough to use on anything. And I think that was maybe where I got the initial passion for watches. But it was maybe more of like an interest. I wouldn't say it was an obsession with watches. It is now, but I've developed that and cultivated it and stuff. So I think, you know, you get a lot of people will tell you, follow your passion, like do what you're passionate about. And if you're going to start a business, find out what you're passionate about and go for that. And I kind of think that's like quite bad advice for a lot of people. And I think if you'd told me at 20-year-old, go for it, follow your passion, I would be like, oh, going out drinking with the lads, that's my passion. Like, you know, there's so much more. So I think you have to, if you're a passionate person, you can get passionate about almost anything, you know. So I was saying about my first job was in sheet metal work. Like no little kid dreams of, oh, I'm going to be a sheet metal like engineer someday. It's just not the thing. But you get passionate about it through doing it, because you'll find things that really interest you about it, or complex problems that you get to solve. And I think if you can find something you're kind of interested in and do that, then you can develop the passion for it later as you start to grow with it. And I think that's like the bit that nobody tells you. And I think if you think of all the things you're really passionate about now, there was a time when you weren't. So you've discovered that passion through doing it. So maybe it's football or whatever. Well, there was a time when you didn't, you know, really like it that much, but now through doing it, you kick the ball about and you play it more and more often and you become obsessed with it. And you can do that with like anything, you know. So watches, I was interested in watches. I liked them. And then as I started researching it and went more and more down the rabbit hole, you get sucked into this world and you become really passionate about it. And then that's when you can become obsessed. And when you become obsessed with an idea, that's when you can make something like a reality.
There's a word I heard you say a couple of times there, and that's obsession.
Yeah.
Do you feel like an obsession about what you do or about your business, do you feel like that's something that is a must for an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Or how do you sort of...
I think it's a must. I think you must be obsessed with the idea and the business and the thing that you want to create, and obsessed with a positive why you're doing this. And I think having maybe a bit of a mixture of a positive why I want to achieve this to help my family or help my community, or, you know, having a greater good there to drive you forwards is really important, and also having a little bit of like a negative, why I want to do this to avoid this pain, or I don't want to be a failure, I don't want to be a this, that can drive you forwards too, but it can't be the only thing. I think you need a blend, but you must be obsessed with it, or otherwise you'll give up when the going gets tough, and the going will get tough. Like, things will be hard, things won't work, you'll find despair, and you have to push through a little bit. And I think unless you've got that real obsession, you would probably give up a little bit too easy and quit just before you if you'd pushed through, you could have maybe made it a bit harder. So I think that's important to find something you can be obsessed about. And if you're gonna do a business, like, it's not easy, you will have to put it above almost everything else, and to the expense of going out with friends. No, I'm working on this thing. And especially if you've got a 9 to 5 and you're building something on the side, you've only got a limited number of hours in the day. So you may be at work for 8 or 10 hours a day, you sleep for 6 hours, and then you've got like the rest of that time to try and do your family, your exercise, your business, and you have to fit it all in. And there's like, so I would read lots of books and lots of autobiographies, and there's always like clues to success, and like that's something that Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about a lot in his book. I don't know if you've read his stuff, but he's class. I love his stuff. He's brilliant. So I've
seen his content. It's very good.
So he talks about like, this thing about, you sleep for 6 hours, you work for 8 hours, and you've got all this time to go to the gym or do your business and all that. And then people say, well, I need to sleep 8 hours or 10 hours, and he just says, you better sleep faster. Faster. And I was like, that's class. So
What did he on the build up and stuff? What did your, so you say you get up, you go to work for like 10 hours and stuff. Did you just have, for people who are maybe, I'm thinking of myself, but I feel like there's a lot of people that are thinking the same thing. When you came home from work, did you do like a 6 to 9 on the business, or how did you do that?
How did I do it? Yeah, good question. No, so I kind of did, I would go to work, come home from work, and then as soon as I was home, that was like family time. So I would spend time with my wife, with the kids, have dinner, try and get them to bed, and then I would work on the business after kind of almost everyone had gone to bed. And I actually, like, the very first version of the Nomadic website, I mainly built from my phone whilst like rocking the baby to sleep, and whilst like Atticus was maybe like asleep in my arms at like 2 a.m, I'd be like building. So Shopify is like a really powerful tool for running an e-commerce business, and it has some really great stuff for building websites and the rest of it on there. So I would just literally be sitting on the Shopify thing building a website on my phone, and so that was maybe an advantage as well, because it allowed me to make sure it was mobile optimized, not desktop. And I think everybody uses their phone now, and most web developers will probably build it on a desktop first and then convert it to mobile, but I just built it all from my phone. And
is that a big thing, Shopify, for like selling stuff?
Yeah, I'd say there's loads of other platforms out there. That's the one I use. It's the one I know a few other businesses use from all sizes, from like, literally just starting off to some of the biggest businesses in the country and in the world use Shopify. It's a really powerful platform. That's what I use, and it's not that expensive either. You can get like a month free trial, and I would say if you're looking to start a business, I would give Shopify a good go. Yeah, it's definitely worth exploring.
What's your why?
What's my why? I think my why is kind of these combination of factors. It's I'm really passionate about local manufacturing and local engineering, and when I first started the business, it wasn't possible to just make things here because I didn't have the scale, I didn't have the money to invest in that, and I didn't have the time, so I had to work with overseas suppliers. And my passion now is to migrate as much as that to Belfast as we possibly can, so whilst keeping the movement and the internal mechanism made in Switzerland for now, because those guys really are the experts, and they know that's like the engine of the watch. It's like we buy like a Rolls-Royce engine and put it into our kind of car, but I'm passionate about bringing as much manufacturing here as possible. So that's the reason why we've built our Belfast HQ, which you've seen this morning there, and it's like a mixture of a boutique kind of retail space and a watchmaking facility, and that's where we build all our watches. But it took us a little bit of time to kind of get to that stage where we are able to build everything here. Yeah,
because you did it at home, didn't you?
I was doing it at home, and initially the first watches were all just built by our suppliers, so they weren't built here at all. We just had the connection to here, and we did some of the very small bits of final assembly here, but not enough to say it was made here or anything like that. So we always just said it was designed in Belfast and part of the Swiss movement. But now we can fully say they're built here. You know, we do all of the final assembly here, all the pressure testing, all of the time accuracy testing, you know, everything goes on here now. And I want to do more and more of that. And there's kind of some other businesses that have done that in the kind of UK market, and we want to replicate that here in Northern Ireland, do our own version of that, and put Belfast on the map. And that's my kind of key driver, is that I want to celebrate this amazing place and city and people on the global stage, and we're starting to kind of make a name for ourselves and do that now. And my other kind of driver is really my family, and I want to provide an amazing life for them, and that's what kind of keeps me going and gets me out of bed.
We hear the excuse all the time, oh, I would like to do it, but I haven't got the money to do it and stuff. How did you did you have that behind you from the 9 to 5 to fund it as such?
Fund it, yeah. So not really. So no. we had a bit of savings.
How did you worm your way?
How did I get it? Yeah. So good question. So I would say money is like not a good enough excuse not to do like an idea, because there's so many options. Like there's crowdfunding options with like Kickstarter and some of those platforms. You can always, you know, raise money from investors and stuff like that. But the way that I did it, so I had a bit of savings, like not a lot, and we invested that into the initial branding, the initial design and development of the watch, and got to the stage where we had a prototype made. Invested all of our money to get to there, and that then give us enough to go online and say, these are available now for pre-order. We're making the big bulk order in the next 3 to 4 months. You'll get your watch, you know, I think we started in like August, and I was like, you'll get your watch in November time. And we put this up, put it live, and then I remember it so clearly. So I put the website live. It was a Sunday afternoon. Put the pre-orders live, sent out an email. So we started a bit of a social media in the build up to this. Built a few followers, like a few hundred followers, like nothing special. Was telling everybody about this. This is launching. It's launching. Sent out email. Then I just turned my phone off and was like, right, I need to not think about this for a few hours. So we went away. Went for a nice walk and stuff along the beach. Got back to the house. Turned my phone on, and I was like, oh my God, there's an order. I was like, oh, I'll be my mum. Yeah. You know, and then it wasn't. It was a guy called Michael who's from London, and I had no connection with this guy. I never spoke to him.
That was the first.
That was the first ever sale, and it was like, oh my God, a stranger that I have not interacted with has bought our watch. I was like, wow, this
was that like a turning point?
That was a massive, like that was huge, and then I knew I had a bit of confidence then that this could work, because, you know, strangers were buying the product. It wasn't just my mum, and I thought that was maybe what mum was sale number 2. But but that was like amazing to kind of get that and that was what kind of got the ball rolling. So we used those pre-sales to fund the bulk manufacturing of the watches, and then move that forwards from there. So you know, other people have done it through crowdfunding or Kickstarter and those sort of platforms, which works as well. But I wanted to kind of keep control of it myself, so that was kind of how I did it. But there's always ways around being able to get the money for something, like if you really need to make it happen, and you don't necessarily need all of the money that you think you need. So like I was maybe saying to you earlier about this, our Belfast HQ, so this was my big like 5 or 10 year goal. I was like, someday we'll build this facility where we're making all the watches here, and we'll do all this, and we'll have a retail store, and it'll be this big shop front. And I had in my head that this was going to cost, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds, and I was like, yeah, that we'll save that for a few years down the line when we're a bit bigger and we have more money and we can get some investors involved, and we'll build this thing. And that was kind of how I had that idea for it going forwards. And I was then speaking with a mentor of mine and telling him about this, and he was like, he sort of challenged me, and he was like, well, why are you doing that? Why is that your 5-year plan? Would that not be really important to your business? I was like, yeah. And he was, well, if you had that facility tomorrow, would you be able to grow the business more? I was like, yeah, definitely, that would be a game changer for us. And he was like, well, why are you not doing that now? I was like, well, it'll be too big, it'll cost too much, and had all these kind of excuses. And he was like, well, here's some homework for you, go away and think about that. How could you make that happen in the next 3 months? You know, if you had a gun to your head and you had to make this happen, how could you scale it down, or, you know, do some version of that quickly and get it done now with the resources that you have? And I went away and really thought about that, and I was like, yeah, do you know what, I maybe could, and I could do this bit differently, I could make this smaller, I could do, and we came up with this concept to have this small kind of boutique retail experience where it's a small space, it's intimate, it's kind of one-to-one. You have to book an appointment to come in. We don't have this huge store. You can't just kind of walk in off the street. You have to book time with our watch experts and our watchmaker to come in and see the watches. And it's also the place where they're assembled and made and built, so you can come in, see a bit behind the scenes how they're being made, and that in itself is a really unique experience. Like, you can't go into almost any other watch shop in the world and actually see them being built. So I wanted to create that concept, and that's what we've achieved with our new HQ. And
you get that like sort of personal
you get
feel.
that personal feel to it, and that personal touch, and it's something that, you know, a lot of the bigger brands couldn't do, and that's our competitive advantage, that we can do that. We can have this personal connection with every single one of our clients, and whenever people come in to buy a watch from us, they, you know, they're putting their trust in us, and that's like a real privilege. If you're giving someone a thing, like a gift nearly, that's going to last them a lifetime, they're putting a lot of trust in you, so you have to make sure that you can fulfill on that and back it up. And when they come in and try them on, they're like, yeah, this is the real deal. I know I can trust this brand or trust these guys, and this watch is going to stand the test of time. And that's where we're able to kind of build those relationships with our clients, and that's what keeps them coming back again, you know. And you think, well, guys will maybe buy a watch and it's set for a lifetime, so why would they ever come back again? But they'll come back to maybe buy a watch for their son because he's just graduated university or passed his GCSEs or something like that, or a milestone marker. Or they'll come to get another color because they're going to a wedding and they want to wear a color with a certain thing. So that we do get those repeat customers that keep coming back, and that to me gives me a lot of confidence that we're doing something right.
See, whenever you had the idea in your head about Nomadic and stuff, and then how hard was it to find the correct supplier, or did you find a couple of suppliers? Or
that was really hard. Yeah, so
how did you go about getting the one you want? Or
so I just tried loads of different suppliers, got samples from lots of different ones. There was loads and loads of crap, and we kind of just got lucky that on maybe the third or fourth try we found one that was really good. And I was this is perfect, this will do, we can work on this, and started building it from there with that supplier then. But I think
that's the same one you have now, nearly?
It's the same one I have now, and we're building with those guys, and we now have more suppliers. We're onboarding different suppliers for different components and stuff like that. But initially it was kind of one main guy and a few other kind of sub suppliers that supply different bits and pieces. But that was kind of the world I lived in with my previous role, so I had a bit of experience in dealing with those kind of situations. So, you know, I knew how to work with overseas suppliers, I knew how to work with new product development, and that was what I kind of did for them. So that was the easy bit for me. Like, getting a product developed was like, I know how to do that. That was what I knew how to do, or I thought I did anyway, and that was the easy bit. But the hard bit for me was the new thing. That was like sales, marketing. Like, that was all the stuff that I didn't know how to do, and I'd learned a lot from the other companies I'd worked at and other people, and loads from books, and just took it all in, and that was the steep learning curve for me. But I knew how important marketing was going to be, and from my time at Black Box and other companies, I'd learned that marketing is really the thing that will set you apart from someone else, and that was where I focused most of the effort, or a lot of the effort and time into. Once you had the good product, I knew that then it was time to focus on the marketing. So if there's like one thing I learned in business school, they kind of talked and they teach you, like, even if you've got the best product in the world, if you've got crap marketing, you will not reach anybody and you will not sell it. And even if you've got like a really bad product, if you've got some incredible marketing, you can still make a go of it. So luckily we don't have a crap product, we do have a good, and I think that's how you build a long-term business, when you know you can get people keep coming back to you because they've loved the first one, that they want the second one. So that's where you know you've built a sustainable business. But you would never have reached those people without some great marketing. So that's where we focus a lot of our time and effort in.
That's actually a big question I have written down, because you guys absolutely kill the marketing game. But even behind us, I have like all these cool shots, and that was probably the first thing I ever came across, because I heard about Nomadic and I seen the content and promotional stuff you guys put out before I actually knew you. And I was like, wow, like there's something different about these guys, because it just looks so crisp and slick, and it caught my attention. And I feel like it's caught probably the attention of, especially here in Northern Ireland, But how do you do that? How do you grow a business the way you have through marketing?
Yeah, so it starts with, well, I think you need to have a really good product for starters. So that was core. We developed that, we built it, and we're like, yeah, this is amazing. I know we can do some of this. So how do you then go about making the marketing look as good as the product is? Yeah. That was something we put a lot of time into. So and I was like trying to figure this out. How do I do this on a budget, basically? So within the watch world, there's loads of professional photographers and there's loads of amateur photographers that are really like passionate about it and stuff, and are passionate about watches. And through Instagram, I just built up a relationship with loads of these kind of people, and lots of them had sort of spoke to me about, watches, and they said, look, if you ever have a watch, I just want to see it first. Yeah. Could you send it to me, and I'll do you a couple of pictures kind of for free or for like low cost. And I was like, yeah, these are great. And these are just, guys that love watches. They're not a job for them. They just are passionate about it. But there was one guy in particular called Joe, and he took the most incredible photos, and he didn't charge me an absolute fortune. And he just was really passionate about the watches. And so I sent him the watches over. He took some amazing shots, and I was able to then use those to look so crisp. And that was what kind of got the ball rolling for us. And I think being really particular and fussy about the content is really important. So that's something I spend a lot of time in. So I'll work with the photographers and videographers to create something amazing, and then I'll go back and be like, no, you need to change this, you need to get really precise and dig into the weeds of it. Yeah. And that's kind of, I think, was necessary definitely at the start until they picked up. So like even when watches, like there's lots of little cues. So if you pick up a magazine for a watch, you'll notice the hands are always at 10 and 2. Yeah. And unless you kind of have noticed those little things, or you're really into the watches and shooting them photography wise, you wouldn't necessarily know those things. And those are all really important when you start to like build a brand. So you have to work with experts in the field. So yeah, you maybe think you're amazing, you know lots of stuff yourself, but you can't be an expert in everything. You have to get other people that are experts in their field and bring them in on board to the business. And if you can't afford to hire full-time people that are incredible at this stuff, you can work with freelancers on a hour by hour kind of basis and get some of the best people in the world to work with you on the brand, and you can then access them and afford them by choosing them for a small project and a small part of it, and you can get so much more talent than you would have yourself, or that you could like afford to kind of have in the business. So that was something I was really, was key to me from the start, was finding absolute experts and the best people in their field to go to them and contact them and say, how can I work with you on this? How can you help me? Or how, what can I do for you that you'll come and want to do this with me? Yeah. And once you reach out to those people, you'll find a lot of them, some of them will be like, no, look, I'm too busy, that's not really for me. I'm more in this price range and that's not what you can afford. And you think, oh great, maybe we'll work together in the future. And that was the case with some of the guys I worked with. Networking. Yes, networking. Yeah. So there was some local video guys, and at the start I'd spoke to them and contacted them, and they were like, yeah, look, to be honest, look, this is kind of where we are, price range, and I was like, okay, well, not right now, but someday maybe we'll do some business together. And then within a year, I'd come back to them and said, look, let's open that conversation again. And we were able to do a deal and work with those guys. And that's why we can get some amazing like photography, because we've kind of partnered up with people who are experts in the field.
You're nearly forming a team.
You're forming a team, yeah. And I think that's like the new way to build a team. It's like the traditional kind of corporate structure doesn't exist so much anymore. It still does a bit, but it's so much more common nowadays that you'll have a team that is global, or that don't necessarily work directly for you. You're employing these different agencies or freelancers, and working with that type of team, it is a different challenge. It's a new challenge that these people don't directly work for you, so they don't have the same enthusiasm and passion for the brand, and you've got to get them enthusiastic and passionate about the brand, and that takes like a lot of time to build up that kind of relationship with them. But if you can work and manage like a global team and build this vision of where you're trying to take the thing and get those guys to buy into that, and lead with that like compelling vision for the future, people will want to help you and get on board with it. And that's kind of what I did was paint that future. And you have then a team that is literally global across the world, doing lots of different parts of expert little components for you.
So you nearly need to sell the dream.
Yeah, you have to sell the dream, yeah. So you've got to build the dream for yourself, articulate it, and then figure out how you can get that across to other people. And yeah, you sell the dream so they can get people to help you with it.
Because you have a couple of guys.
Yeah.
Is it Greg and Michael?
Yeah, so we have Greg and Michael and that have joined the team now full time, and then my wife Jane as well is now on board the team part time as well, for between looking after the children and working with Nomadic. So it's great to now have we've now started to build a team, and I've been really fortunate to get some incredible people. Like you met Greg, and his passion for watches is just infectious, and he really knows his stuff. Like he's really experienced from the Watches of Switzerland group, so he's worked with like the Breitlings, Tag Heuers and Omegas of the world, and all these amazing top brands on a daily basis. And when he sort of came into Nomadic and was like, wow, these are on a par. I want to be a part of this. This is something, and he kind of got involved, and even just from a branding point of view, where we're so connected with Belfast and the history of the shipbuilding industry and that sort of thing. Like his great grandfather actually worked on the Titanic, and so he's kind of got that family connection that ties in perfectly with the brand. So it just all kind of aligned, and we got him on board, and it was great. And he's made a huge impact on the business, and once I've had him on the team, it really showed me like, oh, I wish I'd had him like a year ago. That could have been like so much for that. But and then we're so lucky to get Michael as well, who's our master watchmaker. So he's got like over 50 years experience in watchmaking, and to get a guy like that to come into Nomadic was incredible for me. So it just the timings just worked out perfectly and aligned with his stage in life and what he was wanting to do, with where kind of we were. And we built up a bit of a relationship on LinkedIn, I think, initially, and we chatted, and I said, look, I don't really have anything for you right now, but maybe someday we can work together, because I think there's something here. I think he was interested in the brand, and I was interested in him and his skills, and once I got to know Michael and I knew his story, like he's an amazing guy as well. So he's one of the only people in the country to have cycled over 1 million miles on a bike, and he's got different national records for cycling, and he's like, to cycle like 1 million miles on a bike, that means riding your bike every day for decades. Like, so he's just got this incredible passion and spark and that like tenacity and resilience, and to have him come on board the team has just added a whole new dimension, and we're just put us on that level above in terms of quality, that we can control everything in-house, and every watch now goes through Michael and puts his like expert eye on it, and you can't kind of get that, you can't just pick that up in like a day. That sort of experience only comes through decades of like hard work, and that's why we're really fortunate to have him on board. And we're now trying to figure out how do we get those kind of dying skills, like you can't really just go to watchmaking school in Northern Ireland kind of thing. So we're like trying to figure out.
Where did his come from? Where did his?
So he learned it initially as an apprenticeship. So back in the days before quartz watches and before smart watches and everything, everything was mechanical, and it was a much bigger thing to have teams of watchmakers and stuff. So he worked for one of the top jewelers in the city and learned his craft from sitting at the bench beside the master watchmaker at the time, and basically taught him an apprenticeship in watches. And Michael will always say like an apprenticeship in watches, an apprenticeship in in a traditional trade is maybe like 3 or 4 years, and then you go and you're off. But he says an apprenticeship in watchmaking is a lifetime. And he's kind of followed that through for his entire like career. So then he went out of watches and went and built a successful career in retail, but he kept it up on the side as always like his passion. So he's always tinkering with watches, and so we kind of brought him and his experience in. So it's great.
What you were saying earlier about a mentor, and sort of what sort of influenced you, or how important is it to have a mentor? Because not so long ago we had Rachel Irvine. I don't know if you know, because she was at the Think Network events.
Yeah, I don't know her personally, but I know of her. Yeah.
She was saying about the importance of having a mentor, and we're always thinking, wow, like that's such an interesting thing, because maybe you don't hear that so much here. But who was sort of, or what influenced you?
Good, that's such a good question. Kind of something that I've always thought, I wish, how do I get a mentor? What's a mentor like? Who? And I don't really have like a mentor as such. Like I don't have a formal person that I go to every month or something. So I kind of have like lots of mentors, and they probably don't even know that they're my mentor sort of thing. I just had lots of like people that I've built up over the years that I'm connected with or friends with or have worked with in the past, and I know they have knowledge in a certain area, and if I have a particular problem, I'll ring up my friend Damien, who I did my one of my degrees with, and I was like, I've got this problem with HR, like if you were doing that, what would you do and stuff, and he'll just maybe kick a few ideas across, and thanks for that. And then I have a different problem with something else, I'll maybe ring up one of my other pals and just bounce ideas off them, and you soak it up, and that's kind of where I get my mentorship from. It's not like a formal thing, it just kind of happens a bit more kind of naturally, and I think that's maybe the bit that people don't really tell you, like, oh, get a mentor, and you can go and maybe pay someone or whatever to be, and you can learn a lot from that quite quickly. But I've just cherry picked what I need from different people, and a lot of my mentors as well would be like not imaginary, but like I've only read their books. So I'd be like, you know, Tony Robbins would be maybe one of my big ones. I would read a lot of his books and have done a couple of his seminars, and I would. What's that like? Amazing! Yeah, so his stuff is class. He's done some really good stuff. I like his approach because it's quite energetic and it's quite unique, but it's always kind of has a basis to it, or like it's not maybe as airy-fairy as it kind of looks like from the outside. It's all grounded in science. So like he does lots of this jumping about kind of stuff.
But there's science behind it. But there's
science behind it, because that impacts your physiology and that gets your endorphins going. And when you feel good and you're in like a positive state, then you can work at a better level. And you know, if you walk into a room, if you imagine like you've got a scale from 1 to 10, and you walk in maybe to this podcast and I'm meeting you and I'm like a 2 out of 10, and I'm like, oh, all right, Michael, how's the crack? And then I'm not really feeling it. Like, or if I come in and I'm like a 10, I'm like, all right, Michael, how's the crack? And like, that's maybe not appropriate either. So you have to find your scale of like energy and maybe pitch it in around a 7 or an 8, so that you're at the right energy level for the right situation. And Tony's kind of stuff talks a lot about that and thinking about your energy management. So maybe through the day, your energy will dip and you'll start to notice yourself that you're maybe only at a 3 or 4, and you think, you kind of catch yourself on, and then you realize, right, I need to go for a walk, I need to get a coffee or a water, and then you come back to your work again with a fresh set of eyes and or a fresh perspective on it, and that's how I kind of keep myself going and work through that.
You were saying there about like it might sound like airy-fairy, because I heard Tony Robbins talk about if you stand in like, it sounds weird here, but like if you stand in like the Superman pose for like
all this kind of stuff,
you like, I don't know what it is, it's like the endorphins or something in your brain.
Yeah.
You just feel more confident.
More confident, definitely, and I think, you know, if you're not feeling confident, act like you are, and you'll soon start to feel that way, really. Yeah. It's kind of weird. It's like if you smile a little bit, you'll feel a little bit happier, kind of thing, and it's just like using lots of these little like hacks to kind of trick your body into thinking, and then you will actually sort of become that and feel a little bit better. Would you ever?
I think, does Tony talk about like vibration and like visualization and stuff?
Not so much, no. And I think a lot of that stuff, like, again, yes and no, but so yes, for visualization and stuff, yes, I think it's important to think about your goals, visualize them as they're as you want them to be and how you want to live and have this compelling future. Yeah. But I don't for 1 second believe that like that's putting some vibes out into the universe and that'll then somehow magically happen for you. It happens through action, and you have to take action, and if you've got a goal, it's just a dream until you actually put a plan in place and act on it and do something about it. Yeah. You're not going to wish anything into existence, but there is a little, like some science which I do, you know, kind of think works in terms of visualization and manifestation, and that repeating these things over and over again works because of the reticular activating system. So it's like the part of your brain. So if you're in like a crowded room and everybody's chit-chatting, you just hear like all this kind of background noise, and somebody shouts or mentions your name, you'll hear your name really clearly in a crowded room. Like, how, out of all that noise, how can you hear your own name or something like that, or something that you're interested in? So I think that's down to the reticular activating system. It's like a particular part of your brain that scans through all the stuff. Like you can't notice everything in this room. It's all in your peripheral vision, but you can't notice the details of everything. Yeah. You only pick up the stuff that you're interested in. So like, I'll be looking at your face and your body language stuff, but I'm not really paying attention to the carpet, for instance, like, or the ceiling. I don't know what color it is. But if I'm interested in watches, which
I don't be looking at this.
I'll notice your watch, for instance, whereas if you weren't into it, you maybe wouldn't notice it. So I think that stuff works because you're putting these ideas into your brain, and then you then notice opportunities that are related to them, and you can then follow up and act on those. So you wouldn't maybe necessarily notice a particular opportunity coming up if you weren't paying attention to it, and it could just pass you by. But if you've done this manifestation or whatever you want to call it, and it's put that kind of on your radar, your brain's then looking for those, scanning for those little opportunities, and when it comes up, you're like, oh, that's something I can pay attention to, and you start to then follow up opportunities. And that's why I think that stuff works, not because it's like you just wish it into like existence. I think that's like
it's doing.
It's actually taking action is what's going to get you somewhere. I think it's yeah.
No, I actually remember seeing you or meeting you for the first time at the Think Network event and stuff. Yeah, and sort of like you had the big clock and stuff behind.
Yeah, we had like the big like time clock and all these kind of big branding at the event. Yeah,
because I seen a couple of photos from it actually, and seen the clock, and I was like, wow, because every guest that stands up has the clock in the background. And I was like, that's smart stuff. Yeah. How did you sort of feel like collaborating with like people like Gary Doherty, because we've had like Gary on the
so Gary's great, and I think like
Kieran's stuff too.
Kieran May as well. So like I think like the stuff that he's doing is amazing, and I think even just like hosting those type of events for personal development and stuff in locally is like amazing. It's not. I think we don't get the opportunity to have some of these kind of things here, or it's not maybe talked about as much in Northern Ireland. So to have someone actually putting that on our radar here that we can actually go to is amazing. And I think when you go to those events, I always go with like an open mind, and you hear the experiences of all these other people, and I think you cherry pick the things that are relevant to you. And I'll always take like a little notepad and write loads of stuff down. So I'm sitting in this like the Think Network event, and you know what it's like, and it's great, and everyone's kind of chatting and paying attention to the speakers, but I'm sitting there with like a little notepad. I feel like a weirdo because I'm sitting writing it all down, but I'll flick through maybe those notes later on. And like when Kieran was speaking at his event, it was like a year ago, and I the other day flicked through the notepad and was like pulled out something that he said, and I was like, oh yeah, that was actually really good, like that was really good advice, and it resonates with you again. And you might not pick it up at the time as being particularly useful, but later on you'll be like, oh yeah, that's good, I'll use that, I can use that sort of thing. And you might not agree with all of what's said, but I think you just pick out the things that are relevant to you, and then you can use those. And I always think if you get a book and you read it, or you go to an event and even if you get one little idea from it, it was worth the investment, because that one idea could be the game changer that'll change your life.
It's funny you say that, because me talking to you now, we're having this conversation, even with Ross and stuff, it's like I'm hearing you speak and I'm listening. And this happens at every podcast. Whenever we're editing. But we'll hear bits that we missed. Just by repeating it and editing, you see. And we'll be like, whoa, like I completely missed that, if you know what I mean. And it happens every time. There's a wee like
gem in there.
I mean, it's funny, you never pick it up the first time, so whenever we watch this back, I'll be like, oh, I missed that.
I know. I do that a lot. I'll read books, or I've got really into audiobooks now. And I'll listen to them, and I'll listen to them maybe 2 or 3 times, or I'll come back to them a few months later, and I'll be like, oh, I missed this whole chapter. I was like, what happened there? That was gold. How did I miss that? And you pick up new ideas every time.
It takes you to read it twice, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think so.
Go through a question that you hear, but who inspires you?
Who inspires me?
Who inspires you to do what you do, really?
Yeah, I think success leaves clues. So it's always great, whatever you're doing, someone has done it before, or a version of it, or something close. So there's always like a pathway to follow, and I think I learned that quite early on from like reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's book. I talked about him earlier actually. That I always read autobiographies from people that have like actually done it, rather than maybe like just talk about it. Like I read the people that have actually done these things, and he kind of followed the path of Reg Parks, who was like a bodybuilder at the time that then went into acting and made a bit of a success for himself, and he thought, I could do that too, and do it in a different way, and do it my way, and do it better. And he kind of followed that as his blueprint. And I always think, there's a success path that like people have followed before, and if you can do not the same thing, but you can definitely repeat some of it, or take inspiration from it. So I'm inspired by people that have done incredible like feats and all these kind of amazing adventures. That kind of like really inspires me, because if you can do that through these incredible harsh environments, I'm like, I can do this in in my small little problem that I've kind of got, I think is really cool. So guys like Sir Reynold Fines and stuff is really inspirational to me, and I had the pleasure of meeting him one time. Actually, I'll tell you a story about him in a minute. But the guys that inspire me sort of business wise are Nick and Giles from Bremont. So they've built this incredible, if you're not familiar with Bremont as a watch brand, they're a British based brand, and they've done so much for British watchmaking in bringing all this manufacturing back to England, and they've built this amazing HQ where they do all the manufacturing themselves in-house, and they've put kind of their brand on the global stage and used influencer marketing at the time before that was even like a thing. So like when the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie came out years ago with Orlando Bloom and stuff, he was wearing a Bremont watch because like they'd kind of cracked this like influencer thing before it was what nobody did that. It wasn't like a thing. And now to try and get somebody like that to wear your watch would cost probably millions or something, but at the time I think he was just, oh, I like that, it's cool, I'll wear it, yeah, no problem. And it was just, so they kind of really pioneered a lot of the stuff, and I want to replicate that in a bit of a way for like Irish and Northern Irish like watchmaking, and put us on the map in a similar way to what they've kind of done. And that's, so I look up to those guys and follow them as a kind of a business blueprint, I suppose. And then in terms of like personal and professional stuff, or personal development, I think Tony Robbins is a bit of an idol, and then I look to other local business success guys and stuff, and try and follow in their footsteps as much as possible.
Do you ever see all these guys that you aspire to be like and look up to? Do you ever see that one wee thing that they all have?
Something I've noticed, like a lot of them all seem to have in common, is some kind of meditation routine, and it comes up time and time again. Every time I speak to someone that's like really successful, somehow ends up talking about meditation, or some kind of, if it's not meditation, it's something like that. And that's something I have tried to do. I haven't quite got the hang of it yet, but I'm trying to develop the routine of that. And what's kind of got me thinking about it in a new way is like, it's like going to the gym, but the muscle that you're training is focus. And I think if you can focus on a task a little bit longer, a little bit better. It's so easy to get distracted nowadays with like your phone constantly pinging, and it's so easy just to pick it up and like doom scroll on social media, and I do that all the time. But if you can train your brain a little bit and develop that focus muscle, you'll do that less, and then I think that's like kind of like a superpower, and I think that's what a lot of these successful guys seem to have. And when I read loads of books, and there's a really good book that you probably like from Tim Ferriss called Tribe of Mentors, and he kind of does like, I guess like this, like a podcast kind of interview with all these uber successful people, and then asks them like the same set of questions every time and distills down what they all kind of have in common. And it was amazing listening to that. Like 80+% of them have some kind of meditation routine in their day. And
because that's not by chance.
No, that's not by chance. So I'm like, that there's something to that. I need to start doing that too. Maybe I'll figure it out. And I think I haven't quite cracked it yet, but I did sort of crack cold water exposure. So we talked about that. I do lots of like sea swimming and stuff. And if I can't, so I'm fortunate to live quite close to the sea. So I walk down to the sea on a morning. It takes like 5-10 minutes for me, and then get in the water. And I think that cold water exposure is like really good for your body and really good for your mind then as well. And it's a good thing to do first thing. But if I can't do that, I'll have a cold shower. And I think I do that now every morning religiously, either a cold shower or a cold swim. And it's like, it's one of those things that I think, again, it's like for me, it's like training your brain that like, when I say go, we go. And every morning I get in the shower, I turn it on, freezing cold, and I stand there and look at it, and I'm like, I do not want to get into this. Like, this is horrible. Why am I doing this? And this is going to be, and then my brain sort of tells you, you don't need to do it. Just take a wee day off. Why are you doing that to yourself? Sure, take it easy. And as soon as I hear that little voice, I'm like, go. And then I just jump in, and then you kind of get it. And then I feel great. And I really enjoy it then. I feel amazing. But as soon as that little negative voice kicks in to say, it's okay, it's all right. So you've worked hard. Take it easy today. I know that I have to push through and get it done. And then I feel amazing. And I feel like it sets me up for the day, knowing that I've already done something really hard. And anything then I face in the day, I'll know will be a little bit easier. And I kind of got put onto that trick from my old boss at Blackboard. He was big into all that stuff, and I was like, all right. And then I started doing it, and I've now got into the habit of it, and it's amazing. So
it's funny how like that 5 minutes of hell turns out to have like you can have the best day of your life. After that, just from doing that one thing.
Definitely,
One thing I actually realized whenever we talk to like successful people is they've all taken this risk, and I don't think we've ever talked to someone who hasn't taken a risk. What would be your sort of biggest risk that you've taken on your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think the biggest risk, maybe touched on already, was just like making that leap to go full time into it, and that to me felt like a really big risk. Like, yes, initially investing the money and taking out some loans and stuff to pay for some of the samples felt risky at the start, but whenever I was like, this is the only income we're getting to our family, like if we don't sell some watches this month, like we're not going to Tesco to buy the shopping kind of thing. It's like, oh, like that sinks in. Like, yeah, so I saved up like a little bit of, put some money to the side so I have a cushion, I speak of, you know, maybe like a month's worth of kind of expenses. So I'm like, right, if it really goes bad, we've got this as a safety net, but that's not much of a safety net. So that felt like a really big risk. But as I touched on earlier, when you break it down into what's the worst that can happen and how permanent would that be, it doesn't feel as scary, and it gives you the confidence to go for it.
It's like burning the boats. You ever heard that expression?
Yeah, burning the boats is something I'm a big believer in. I think you know, I almost kind of wish I'd done it sooner, because I think you can't. It's hard to make anything really successful unless you're giving it all your focus, and until you really commit to something that like, I think that's when risks become risky, is when you're kind of half in and half out. It's risky because you're not focusing on any one thing. Like, you're gonna, if you have your career and your side hustle, if you want to call it that, and you're not focusing on either one, you're going to drop the ball on probably both. But if you can do one really well and build your career, you'll probably make a success. And if you can do your business and do that full time, you'd probably make that a success too. But I would say you can try and run them parallel for a while, but there comes a point when you will break. And I kind of hit that point at one stage, and I think it all just got a bit too much for me, and I probably was just doing so much work on my day job, which I was so passionate about and I loved, and the people I worked with, I had, you know, responsibility to try and do my very best for them as well. So I had all that, and I was trying to push that really hard, and it was full on. I loved it, it was great, but then trying to push Nomadic at the same time, that's full on, and it was really big. And then we had like a baby on the way, and a young child as well, and like all of that just like became a bit overwhelming for me at one stage, and I kind of just crumbled and had this, like, I don't even know what you would call it, like a panic attack or something, but it kind of hit me pretty full on, and I'd never experienced anything like that before. And I realized, oh, okay, yeah, like maybe mental health is like a real thing, or, you know, it's important. You need to take care of that in just the same way as you would take care of your physical body, and it's all connected. And I kind of took me a little bit of time to figure it out, and I think I was very fortunate I had like my wife there to, like, communication was really the key, and just talking it all through with her and speaking to her about it helped massively, and then I was able to kind of break things down into like more manageable chunks. But that's when I realized, yeah, like, you can't go full on at everything and burn the candle at both ends. You need to pick one thing and do it, and that was where I guess I got the motivation to go full time at it, because I was like, yeah, look, I know if I did only have that to focus on, it would be so much easier, and it was a lot easier then once I could focus on that, and that was where we just took off in growth, because I could give it my full attention, and yeah. I feel like it's all risk. You know, it's
like
always a risk. Everything's a risk. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
because that's one thing that I've always been nearly told. It's like, oh, like if you do that, if you go full time into this, that's a big risk and all. But then again, you not going into that, like you not going into the watches is a risk to your dream.
Definitely, yeah.
Isn't it?
It's a massive
outlook.
And I think that's the way you need to think about it. It's like, yeah, well, that's a risk too, and everything's a risk, and you know, you even staying in a safe career is a risk too, because you can lose those jobs as well. You know, like that's still a risk, and you can. But I think the risk to your like personal happiness and knowing that you've never even really tried, I think is like, that was what, you know, spurred me on to like, I do not want to get to my old age and look back and think, I didn't even really try. Like, I had all these ideas and it
never followed through.
Like, it didn't follow through. And I think that you need to just at some point give it a go, and it doesn't work, all right, go back and do something else.
You followed your passion. What advice would you have for someone looking to follow theirs?
I think that's a great point. So I think finding your passion is a bit overrated, as I touched on. So find that thing you're interested in and then become passionate about it. So the story about Reynold Fines, I was going to say, he I got to ask him, because he'd just spoken about this amazing like trip to Antarctica, where he's like gotten frostbite and like lost his fingers, and like he literally like got frostbite in his finger, and then he like hacksawed them off just to save the rest of his hand, like crazy stuff. And I was like, this harrowing expedition. I was like, how on earth? And I asked him like, how do you motivate people? I was like, it's all right, you motivating yourself to get through this, but how, if you've got a team like around you, how do you motivate them to get through these like horrible things? How do you tell someone to do that stuff? And he was like, he said, you can't motivate unmotivated people. He's like, you just need to hire motivated, passionate people. He's like, you can't motivate someone externally in an environment like that. It's not a thing. You need to have that inside you, and you either have it or you don't. And I think you can develop it as well. So that's something that I kind of took away from meeting him, and was like, you just need to be internally motivated and passionate. And so when I'm hiring people or looking for people to join the team, that's what I look for first, is hire for passion, train for skill. And if you can meet someone that's passionate about anything, then you can get them passionate about your mission too, or what this like mission that they're going to be part of is as well. And so I think that was it. What I would say for anyone that's looking to not sure what to do, or come out of school or in a job and they're like, I want to do something else but I don't know what it is, like just find something that you're quite interested in, and you have you're kind of have a bit of a talent for it, and then you can develop it and push it, and that's where you can build your passion from. You don't need to have this thing you're already we can't all be football players and like rugby stars and stuff, so like those are the typical passions that maybe like lads would have. So I think you have to just develop those passions.
I love Nomadic, and I love what you guys are all about and what you symbolise. How do you envision the future growth of your company in Northern Ireland and globally? Yeah,
so the way I see Nomadic growing is developing our product line a little bit more. I always mentioned that we build our watches around stories that inspire us, and that's something we're going to continue to do, and broaden out the product range so we have more things to offer more people at different price points, from going a bit higher and a bit lower, and developing out our product range. And that's going to give us more scope to reach more people, and then from there I kind of see us really doing more and more of our manufacturing here, and that's something I'm quite passionate about. And when that's like authentic in the brand, and we're developing the process capabilities, because like Northern Ireland is not known for high-end horology, so it's not like Switzerland where you have these manufacturers with decades and decades of experience in how to make these tiny components. That skill has to be developed, so we want to build the supply chain like around us to be able to do things here, and that's where I see us getting the growth of the brand and pushing a bit further into America. So that's already like our second biggest market, and I think we can do so much more in the States, and that's what we want to try and expand on, and utilize our HQ here as a base for tourists as well as like local people, and then use that to continue to expand in the States. Even hearing you say that, I actually find that incredibly inspiring. Because like that started from your house. Now you're talking about a global, having a global impact on it's everywhere. Crazy, like we've got a watch in 34 countries, and that just blew my mind, and I think we want to try and spread that even further, and I think that's something that drives me, is trying to reach our product with more and more people, because I think that it is a great product and they're gonna love it, and I know that people will love having that connection, and our current clients tell us that. So I know that it works, and I want to share that with more and more people. I love it. I'm a fan. But I'll end on this here, and this is the question we ask each and every one of our podcast guests. But if you could give one piece of advice for aspiring entrepreneurs in anything, doesn't have to be with watches or whatever, what would it be? I think if I could give someone one single piece of not even advice, like encouragement, I would say you are enough. I would say that was something I maybe struggle with as well, as thinking that you're not good enough, or I'm not enough, I can't do this, other people are so much more talented than me, I can't do this. I would say that you're enough and you've got it within you to do whatever that thing is that you're passionate about. And when you have the belief and confidence in yourself, like I think you have to have confidence in yourself because no one else can do that for you. But if I could say one thing, I would say that. And with that, you know, to have confidence, I think you need evidence. So, you know, you're not just going to be confident on your own. You need to have some evidence there that backs you up from things that have gone well for you in the past. And it's easy to, we always fall into the trap of, oh, I did this thing before and it didn't work. I'm scared of that. I'm not going to do it again. Like you touch something hot, you're like, that was hot. I'm not going to touch it again. Yeah. But you think you need to have all these positive reinforcements of the things that did go well. Oh, well, I am good at that because I did this thing and that went well for me. Or I'm really good with people because I spoke to, you know, this person and had this impact. Or I think when you have that little bank of memories and things that did go well for you and when things worked, you can build the evidence that you are good at this thing that you're trying to do, and that's what gives you the confidence to go and do it. It's not just blind confidence. You need to base it on evidence. So build your little bank of evidence that tells you that you've got it because you've done it before. You can do it again on the next step up, and that's my biggest piece of advice.
Peter, thank you so much. I'm sorry it went on so long because I feel like it took up your half your day.
No, that's brilliant.
Well, no, I really appreciate you coming on because I haven't seen you at the events and stuff. I was like, must get you on. And
yeah, no, it's been something I've wanted to do for ages.
I appreciate that. And we couldn't have picked a better location as well.
No, thank you. It's a cool space and it's great to be able to chat to you at last, and hopefully some of that was useful. I'm sorry I rambled on so
long. No, you're grand.
Hopefully there's something in there that somebody will find useful and inspiring, and if even one person takes one thing away from it that has a positive impact, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's exactly what we think whenever we're doing the podcast at the start. Whenever no one was watching, like as long as one person took something away, then our job here is done. Honestly, thank you so much. If you haven't been down, check out. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so it's nomadicwatches.com, and on Instagram it's nomadic.watches. So yeah, connect with us on Instagram. Pitch straight to the camera. Connect with us on Instagram, and connect with us on our website, and you can book an appointment straight on our website as well, and just select the time that suits you. Come down, meet us, have a chat with myself, with Greg, with Michael, and see the team, see how our watches are being built here, and you'll have a nice time. We'll have a coffee at least, and you can get a feel of the watches. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. That has been all from the official Young Hungry podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.